Well, it's a great question. Essentially what we're doing is we're working on the sensory system. So what you're doing is you're getting better at auditory processing. There's a visual
Auditory processing, what does that mean?
Auditory processing means you're just taking these auditory cues, in this case a cowbell, and responding
or what people are
appropriately.
telling you, right?
Right, and so that's the translation. Once you get better at processing this cowbell and doing the function, whatever this task is that we've assigned, that's going to translate into responding better in social environments or using cues.
Or sports?
For sure.
Oh,
for sure.
yeah.
There's a visual screen I was going to mention that's the eye tracking, so visual tracking gets better.
I can imagine, you know, if your timing is better, like you're noticing where the football is, you know where to take your body to catch it, and you'll better know how to, you know, put your hands. I mean,
absolutely, visual tracking is a huge part of that.
I don't know what kind of football that is. Not being a sports person, maybe softball is better, you know. So you put the bat in the right place because you're watching where the ball is.
For sure. Yeah, your hand-eye coordination
and
gets
you'll
better.
know if it's a foul, you know, by better being in tune. Is that?
Yep, sensory processing is a big part of this, is being able to visually track, being able to auditorily hear if it's, you know, coming from what direction. And what we're seeing is a lot of the sensory deprivation happens, you know, even in utero. So kids that aren't cared for or have very chaotic upbringings have a lot of sensory dysfunction. And it's thought that you can't retrain that, but this is a way that's proven you can retrain it.
Oh, so with a simple listening to the cowbell, it's changing the brain chemistry so that later on, you know, like for example, I never cared about playing sports. I just wanted to meet people. Right. So I was very distracted, you know. I didn't notice if the ball came my way or not, you know, because I was not focusing. You know, I was sort of waving to the people I knew. You know what I mean? So that makes sense.
Yeah, I would say that probably 90% of the people I see are coming to me because of academic, you know, dysregulation. They can't focus.
Academic dysregulation?
Yeah, they're just unable to focus in the classroom. It's ADD, ADHD is the clinical diagnosis. But, you know, it's just kids who are also a little bit apathetic. You know, we have a lot of kids who are just struggling to learn because
they don't want to.
They've never been good at it. Well, when they get good at something like this, that's why I call my company Brag Box. When they get better at something as simple as this, it gives them hope, and they can see that they can learn where they've always struggled to learn. And I can translate, you know, this to improvements, you know, in basketball, for instance, or whatever their favorite thing is. I try to create a functional goal for them.
Does it make sense then, when you've got a teacher that the students really like, they'll focus on what the teacher is teaching them better? Is that right? That partially happens, doesn't it?
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Yeah.
And kids are inherently, they want to please. Kids are very relational. They like to understand that coaching is intended to help them get where they want to be. And when you have that dialogue, it kind of restructures how they think about learning.
Because there are some teachers that can make mathematics really exciting, you know, and that is a way of focusing people. And so when that's not happening, your device can help them do that.
Yeah, even if it's just a change in a couple milliseconds, it improves their self-confidence. They see immediate improvement, which is big, right? Because a lot of times you know, in academic settings, they only test it, you know, quarterly periods, and it's hard to see immediate progress. So this is a nice piece that shows that on a consistent basis, and kids thrive. They get to the point where they can really thrive.
Would it also help students in doing exams? Because like in my case, I kept going faster than the bell. So I probably would have done the test really fast and not paced myself to allow my brain to think about the answers more.
Yeah, it's amazing how it affects your personal timing, and this was true with one of my clients. I had one of the functional goals was doing better at test taking, because he would always go too slow and not finish on time.
Yeah, or too fast and not think enough.
Or go too fast. Yeah, because he has this test anxiety, he would go too fast and miss really obvious, you know, pieces of the test that, you know, it's just really about attention and focus.
Oh, that's
amazing.
So
yeah, personal timing really transfers into so many parts of your life.
That's incredible. And I know in music you have to be precise. So it's
Yeah, it's-
interesting that they have a metronome,
Right.
whereas in sports and in the classroom, they don't.
Right.
You know, like the timing of the brain in how it can, you know, bring information in.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that for kids who don't have that music background, with music cuts in
Yeah.
education and even PE cuts in education, they don't get that rhythmic training anymore. So when they come in here and learn that they can do it, it's very centering for them. They get
Yeah.
a sense of being within themselves, sense of being present and in the moment. And that's often something that you can't train, right, if you don't have an interest in sports or music, or it's too hard, right? Well, this isn't that hard.
Exactly.
It's a little bit boring, and that's why we add the bouncing
Well,
on the
actually,
skateboard.
at first it's disconcerting to do it that way because, you know, we're used to.
Yeah, but I do want to come back to the motor learning piece because it's
Yeah.
movement that makes it durable. It makes the trenches in the brain deeper, and the learning is stronger. Because a kid who comes to Interactive Metronome does 12 sessions over the course of 4 weeks and has some significant improvement, and it shows up in their academics or their home life. They could walk away, come back 3 years later, I could test them again, and they would still have that training.
Really?
That's
So what you were saying, that it builds new neuro pathways, it really does.
Right.
Like new train tracks.
Yeah, there's a saying in neuroplasticity, it's getting the brain to fire together and wire together. So you have
Right.
more lanes, and you can actually calculate faster.
Have an
and-
exciting trip.
Yeah, better neuroprocessing. Is the bottom line.
That sounds really exciting.
Yeah, it is. It's really cool.
So, all right, it helps young people get into the rhythm of their own, brain chemistry. What about people who are in middle management?
Right.
The reason why I say that is they have their bosses at them, and then they have the employees that they supervise. And it's almost like there's so many distractions going on.
Right.
There's the pleasing of the boss and there's the pleasing of the employees. Two different kind
Yeah.
of pleasing, and the job needs to get done.
sure.
And quite often, employees have a different idea of what that means compared to the bosses, and then there's the mission statement of the company.
Right. Well, I think
So how can this help middle
Yeah.
management people?
for anybody that's working with this type of training, because it's working on the executive functions of planning, processing, and sequencing, you're going to have a better handle on what's called disinhibition. So sometimes we want to do the easy
Disinhibition? What do you
thing.
mean?
Well, disinhibition is, you want to go
need to-
fast.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
You want to get to the goal, but you need to slow down, and you need to get the big picture of what's next. And that's what
Right.
executive function is getting the right things done on time, and being able to parse that out is something that you can get better at. When you learn how to do it with a motor skill, it gets easier in everyday life. And the example for me was when I came to the training, I was trained by Rick Margo, who's the son-in-law of the inventor. And,
The inventor being Robert Melillo?
No,
Oh, no.
no, it was, his name's not on the tip of my tongue, but basically the point is that I was brought in to do a clinical study, and so I was a middle manager, and I wasn't going to be very successful at this job if I hadn't done the training myself, because I had, to invite the clients in for the study, I had to do the training, I had to come up with the protocol, I had to,
Right.
do the recruitment and, coordinate this
It
calendar.
feels like a mess.
And I really don't think I would have been able to do a very good job of it had I not first been trained myself and be able to
Right.
kind of break the task down into the smaller pieces. What are the important ones? And then work from there. So it really does help you break any task down into, the manageable chunks, right? Let me get through this next 3 hours. Right?
Right. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So in slowing down, that's what it seems like you're talking about, is slowing the brain down so that it can organize itself in a much more logical and manageable way,
Right.
which, is very hard for middle management people
Yeah.
because they've got
Yeah, a lot
happening all
coming
the
at you,
time. Yeah.
For sure. And it is a calming sense of accomplishment when you're able to stay with the beat. What we're doing is extending focus, extending
Right.
concentration, but it's affecting a very deep center of the brain called the amygdala, and the amygdala is that